Hi everyone, minasan konnichiwa. My name is Anais. I'm from Windsor in England, and I'm the 2022 intern at Labo. As part of the internship, we are given the opportunity to research and take part in any aspect of Japanese culture of our choosing. The cultural topic that I chose to focus on for my project over my 6 months in Japan is Japanese tea ceremony, also known as sado, chado, or chanoyu, which literally translated is the way of tea or tea and hot water. I've always had an interest in Japanese philosophy and rituals, which is often rooted in either Zen Buddhism or Shintoism. Although it is a tradition involving socialization and consumption of tea and sweets, the tea ceremony, like other Japanese customs, is deeply steeped in the practicing of religious and philosophical beliefs. Tea ceremony provides practitioners with escapism from the fast pace of everyday life, allowing us to slow down and appreciate the present moment with all of our senses. So firstly, I would like to briefly break down and summarize the history of the tea ceremony and how the simple act of socializing and drinking tea became such a coveted and formal practice. Tea ceremony has its roots in Zen Buddhism. Buddhist monks first imported matcha from China in the 12th century, the powdered version of tea providing a more potent dose of caffeine and antioxidants compared to regular sencha, which was more widely popular in Japan at the time. The stronger matcha tea was used mostly for medicinal purposes and to aid monks in staying awake during meditation. As such, it was not consumed solely for enjoyment. Later, in the 14th to 15th century, samurai began to enjoy and appreciate matcha as an aesthetic art form and would often hold tasting competitions between themselves to try and discern the different flavor palettes of strains of tea. Additionally, this social gathering element allowed the samurai the chance to display their wealth and status, as well as their aesthetic taste, as they would often show off valuable possessions during the gathering. The tea master Sen no Rikyu then established what we know today as the tea ceremony in the 16th century. He was a pious man and wanted to bring tea appreciation back to its Zen Buddhist roots. He introduced the idea of using both simplistic and humble tools in combination with fine works of art when doing the tea ceremony, stressing the importance of humility as well as the beauty of imperfection. This allowed for both appreciation of the simple and natural, as well as appreciation of finer objects and the time and effort that was put into making them. Elite samurai began to copy his style and create their own variations, transforming the simple act of serving tea into a social, aesthetic, and spiritual pursuit that is still popular in Japan today. Next, I would like to break down what the tea ceremony is, what you can expect if you participate, how it is performed, and some of the vocabulary associated with it as well. First of all, tea ceremonies are performed in chashitsu, which is a humble Japanese-style room with tatami floors, shoji screen doors, and a tokonoma, which is an alcove containing a flower arrangement, scroll, and sometimes other assorted decorations. Chashitsu can either be a single room built as part of another building, or are built separately. Here are some pictures of chashitsu that I saw when I visited the National Museum in Ueno. The outside of the chashitsu is surrounded by tea gardens called ryoji, which can be translated as the dewy path to spiritual enlightenment. This is represented through the stone stepping stone pathway leading you through the garden. They are always separated into two parts, the outer garden and the inner garden, with the boundary set by a bamboo fence. These gardens separate the outside world and that of the tea ceremony. Often the entrance to the chashitsu is a small opening that you have to crawl through, symbolizing that you leave your status behind when you enter, as everyone enters at the same level. Inside the tea ceremony, all outside relations and status are erased. There is only that of the guest and the host. The full tea ceremony lasts about 4 hours, first consisting of a full meal celebrating seasonal produce and conversation between guest and host. This is then followed by the serving of wagashi, which is Japanese traditional dessert, a thick tea, which is strong matcha, and light tea, weak matcha. This is rarer nowadays, with most casual practitioners performing the shorter 30 minutes to 1 hour version of a course of wagashi and thick tea. I have focused on the shortened version of this ceremony in my research, so we'll be focusing on that today. Firstly, the host will begin by preparing the hearth for heating the water and adding incense. Then, the tools will be prepared and polished with a special cloth in front of the guest. During the whole process, the guest and the host will engage in conversation about the significance of all the details that the host has chosen and the history behind them. The host will then first present the guest with wagashi. This is so the sweet taste lingers on the tongue whilst you enjoy the bitterness of the matcha. The guest will place the wagashi on special tissue paper before eating. The host will then prepare the matcha before the guest, first ladling the boiled water into the matcha bowl, which is known as a chawan, and then disposing of it. This is to heat up the cup as well as purify it. The matcha is taken from its container, known as a natsume, with a special bamboo spatula known as a chashaku, and is put in the cleansed chawan. 2 scoops are usually used for thick tea. The boiled water is then ladled in, and the matcha is then whisked with a chasen, which is a special bamboo whisk. The motion is zigzag or side to side instead of in a circular motion, as the intent is to create a rich foam. When complete, the host will mimic the character no into the matcha with the chasen. The host will then present the matcha to the guest, orientating the chawan so that the most aesthetically pleasing side is visible. The guest is then meant to rotate the chawan so as to appreciate the design and also to not dirty the best side when drinking. The matcha is meant to be consumed within 3 sips. Other lighted sweets, such as senbei or sugar candies, can be enjoyed after, followed by another course of matcha, depending on the ceremony. After the guest is finished and expressed their gratitude, the host then cleans the chawan and the tools, thus ending the ceremony. There are actually many different variations of tea ceremony. In Japan, there are 3 main schools: Urasenke, Omotesenke, and Musha-no-koji senke. Urasenke's philosophy focuses on guest satisfaction, and as such, employs more elaborate tools for the enjoyment of the guests. The philosophy on centering the guest also translates internationally, with the Urasenke school introducing tea ceremony at the 1872 International Exhibition with a table and chairs, allowing for foreigners to also enjoy. Urasenke vigorously whisks the matcha, creating an intensely foamy tea like a latte. I have mostly employed a focus on Urasenke techniques, being the most widespread and international school of tea ceremony. Omotesenke, in contrast, is centered around simplicity and uses more humble, plain tools. This does not allow one object to be appreciated over the other, as all things are equally worthy under the philosophy. Omotesenke's matcha is lightly whisked, so only the top layer of the tea has foam. The Musha-no-koji senke school makes tea with almost no bubbles. Next, I would like to talk a little bit about the philosophy behind tea ceremony. Zen no Ryukyu emphasizes 4 essential tenets of Zen Buddhism within tea ceremony: wa, kei, sei, jaku, or harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. Harmony is represented in the selection of the tools and all the elements of the ceremony. Respect refers to the sacred relationship between the guest and the host, stressing mutual respect and appreciation of each other's company. Purity refers to the cleansing of room and tools before the ceremony, but also represents the spiritual cleansing of the heart during the ceremony. Lastly, tranquility refers to the peace that is acquired upon successful achievement of the former attributes. The aesthetic of the tea ceremony is closely linked with wabi-sabi, meaning desolate or lonely, referring to the rustic beauty of nature's imperfection, as well as beauty in humility and poverty. Sabi means rusted, lonesome, or dreary, and refers to the sorrow experienced for the fragility of life. The design of the chashitsu, as well as the surrounding tea garden and the tools used for the ceremony, all employ wabi-sabi architectural style, being natural, imperfect, minimal, and fragile. Originating in the Heian period, mono oware is a Japanese term to refer to the enlightenment and sense of awe felt after examining the fine details of human life or the changing of the seasons. This belief system is directly linked to the Zen Buddhist idea of transience, the idea that all things are fluid, ever-changing and fleeting. Mono oware plays a huge part in how tea ceremonies are conducted and enjoyed. The ceremony has many meditative qualities to it: the incense burned, the emphasis of the transience of life, and the modest construction of the chashitsu. Something that I came to be fascinated about throughout my cultural research was how tea ceremony changes throughout the seasons. A large part of Zen Buddhist philosophy is the idea of transience, the idea that life is always changing and moving, never stagnant. Tea ceremony recognizes this and seeks to allow you to appreciate the uniqueness and beauty in this present moment in time, knowing that it is fleeting and will never again be the same. Japan has 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter, but according to the official Japanese calendar, Japan has 24 micro-seasons, with the ancient Japanese calendar actually citing up to 72 nano-seasons throughout the year. The sheer amount of detail that is taken to represent the season and even the weather is large and includes: the windows are altered in accordance with the season, temperature, and the brightness of the time of day. Often, shoji screens are used in the winter when there is less light, and slatted bamboo blinds are used in the summer to filter air. The tea ceremony flower arrangement is chosen in accordance with which flowers are in bloom at the time. The arrangement is very simple and natural to reflect this. The host will often use wildflowers, illustrating the season, the beauty of nature, and conveying humility. The hearth for boiling water is in the ground in the colder months and above ground in warmer months. Decoration around the tea room, such as a glass bowl of water with a leaf on top, is to evoke a cooling atmosphere in the summer. Tools such as the tea caddy, or natsume, are carefully selected to evoke the current season as well as suit the atmosphere of the ceremony. This is part of the host's toriawaze, the art of choosing utensils in order to suit the atmosphere and reflect the time of the tea ceremony. The bowl given to the guest is carefully selected. Special bowls are used for different occasions, such as this bowl for Girls' Day, Hinamatsuri. The type of washi paper used to rest the wagashi on, usually this is white tissue paper, but lightly patterned paper with seasonal prints or flowers on is also used by guests. The placement of the hearth also changes throughout the seasons. The guests gather closer in colder months and further away in warmer months. The type of wagashi used also changes based on the season. Wagashi is a traditional Japanese sweet and is made out of sweet bean paste. It is colored and shaped into intricate forms, most often that of seasonal flowers or produce, and is carefully selected by the host before the tea ceremony, before serving it to guests. Here are some of the wagashi that I experienced throughout my time in spring and summer in Japan. As I was interested in how wagashi were made, I attended a workshop and learned how to make various seasonal wagashi myself. It was a lot simpler than I thought, and I had a lot of fun making it. As I wanted to share some of my experiences, I made a quick video demonstrating how to make your own wagashi from home. How to make sakura blossom wagashi. Mix together 4 grams of glutinous rice flour and 8 grams of water in a microwave-safe bowl. Then you're going to need to add 130 grams of shiroan or white bean paste and then with the spatula mix well until fully combined. Then we're going to flatten the mixture, place a kitchen towel on top and microwave it so we can get the right dough-like texture. So I'm going to put it in for 70 seconds at 600 watts. After that's done, we remove the tissue paper and give it another stir. And we want to wait until it's cooled down a little bit before repeating the step, putting a kitchen paper towel down and putting that in the microwave again for another 70 seconds. So after that's done, we want to check the texture. The top should be white and dried out. If it is still damp at the top, you can repeat the last step again. And here we have a nice firm dough. So we're going to want to transfer that dough onto a damp kitchen towel or cloth and knead well. Unfortunately, my kitchen towel broke, so I'm just using a damp wooden board, which will also work as well. Then you want to flatten the kneaded dough down and separate into 4 pieces. This will make about 4 wagashi. And then you want to leave it to rest for a bit so it can cool off. Make sure afterwards to wrap your dough in cling film so it stays moist and doesn't dry out. So now we're moving on to the fun part. We're going to start actually making our wagashi. So first you're going to take a colored food dye. So I'm using a pink because I'm going to show you how to make a sakura blossom wagashi. So you take some of that pink or colored dye and make sure not to use too much of it. You can always add more color later and just knead that in until the color is uniform. So I've formed mine into a little ball like this. And now we're going to flatten it down using the flat side of your hand, and now we're going to form the wagashi. So for the filling, you're going to need some black anko or black bean paste, and you're going to roll that into a small ball. Next, we're going to take the dough that we formed into a circle from earlier and place the black anko ball in the middle of it. Then you're going to want to cup that between your fingers and just try and knead the dough around the black anko until it's fully submerged. Then you're going to want to join up the ends and roll it between your fingers just so it creates a uniform shape. So now we have the base, we're going to start creating the flower. So with the flat end of a cocktail stick, you're going to want to make a shallow hole in the center of the wagashi. This is going to help us to line up when we form the petals. So you're going to need to use any tool with a blunt edge. I'm just using the side of a chopstick, and you're going to want to use a gentle but firm rolling motion into the center of the wagashi. So to make a sakura blossom, you're going to want to make a star shape like this using 5 lines. Probably the most recognizable feature of sakura blossoms are their heart-shaped petals. So to make this, I'm taking the sharp end of a cocktail stick, pressing more firmly in the middle of the sections we just made. And this is going to create a kind of crude heart shape. You're going to want to clean up all of the sections using the cocktail stick, and voila, we have made our sakura. So now we're going to create the center of the flower. I'm going to take some of that white anko dough from earlier. We're going to make a tiny little ball. We're going to add a little bit of yellow coloring and make sure to use a little bit. I used too much here, so I just dabbed it off with some tissue paper. Knead that together to create uniform color, roll that into a small ball and place it in the middle of your sakura to complete. So there we go, some beautiful sakura wagashi to enjoy with our matcha. Using this recipe, you can make any kind of wagashi shape you would like. It's like Play-Doh. You really can make whatever you want from it. You make weird, wild, beautiful. It's very simple, so I hope you give it a try. Okay, so to finish off my presentation, I wanted to end with a little quiz to test how much you took in from what I talked about today. So our first question is, which of the schools of tea allows for you to partake in the tea ceremony sitting at a table and chairs? Is it A, urasenke, B, omotesenke, or C, musha no koji senke? If you said A, urasenke, you are correct. Urasenke is the tea school that has the most reach internationally, believing that tea ceremony should be as accessible to as many people and cultures as possible, hence allowing for tea ceremonies performed on a table with chairs for the guests as opposed to sitting on a tatami floor, which can be difficult for some. It is called ryure, or standing bow tea ceremony, and was actually first performed for foreign guests in 1872. The next question is, what religious philosophy has had the most influence on the tea ceremony? Is it A, Shintoism, B, Taoism, C, Zen Buddhism, or D, Hinduism? If you said C, Zen Buddhism, you are correct. Most prominent are ideals of transience and humility. Next up, what is wagachi's sweet dough made out of? Is it A, flour, B, mochi, C, edamame, or is it D, bean paste? If you said D, bean paste, you are correct. Next question, what is the Japanese name for the bowl that matcha is presented in? Is it A, a chawan? Is it B, a chashitsu? Is it C, a chasen? Or is it D, a chakin? So the answer is A, a chawan. Chawan were imported from China from the 13th century. Though the characters literally mean tea bowl, the word chawan is actually used for bowls for rice as well. The last question is, before drinking the matcha, why are you supposed to rotate the cup? Is it A, to appreciate the designs on the cup, B, to not dirty the side of the cup that was presented to you, C, to appreciate the aromatics of the matcha, or D, to cool down the matcha? If you answered A or B, you are correct. The host will present the cup to you facing the most aesthetically pleasing side, so it is considered polite to drink from another side of the cup as to not dirty it. In addition, this allows you to fully appreciate the beauty and craftsmanship of the chawan. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I had so much fun researching my cultural projects, and I cannot thank Labo enough for their support and encouragement throughout. I hope you all enjoyed learning a bit more about the tea ceremony, and I highly encourage taking part in one if you haven't already. With how fast-paced the modern, highly technological world is, and how overly stimulating social media is, I think it's all important that we take a break once in a while to appreciate the beauty of the moment and enjoy some tea.